Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another video upload from Aspie with Attitude. You're right now watching Autistic YouTube content creator channel. And if you're watching this for the first time, my name is David. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I have autism, Asperger's syndrome. That's why I call myself an Aspie. For this video content, I'm going to discuss moral panic, which comes from Stanley Cohen. Just as a brief history, since I'm going to just dive into the video right now. So what moral panic came about was happened in England back in the 1960s, particularly in the year 1964, when the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were popular. Well, I wasn't there at the time. Let's just say those who had a big following of the Beatles were called the Mods, and those who followed the Rolling Stones were called the Rockers. It happened at some seaside town in England that those who followed the Beatles and those who followed the Rolling Stones actually clashed like a big brawl, which raised a moral panic on youth culture, since those who followed the Beatles are known to wear suits and ties, kind of similar to the Victorian style from 120 years ago, I suppose, in England, but that was in the 1960s, of course. Like, they wore the bowler hats and the suits, listen to Beatles. And while you got these other groups wearing blue jeans, leather jackets and regular t-shirts, all wanted to punch on with them, which then painted a negative image on that kind of youth culture. And it was Stanley Cohen who actually wrote a book called Moral Panic and how this all works. I once used to be into hip hop starting from the age of 23, and it dropped off when I was 36 years old. Especially living with my father, who actually was a big fan of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and hated hip hop. And I had covered my hip hop life pretty much in episode 74 when I said I used to be a hip hop artist, something I did for 7th of September 2019. I once again spoke about this for episode 190 when I used to be a rapper or used to rap, something I did for 8th of August 2021, which is a bit longer, going a bit deeper, how I could have expressed my autism a lot more when I used to be a rapper back in the 2000s into the early 2010s. It pretty much talked about how my father disputed me as a hip hop artist in episode 256, which is Universal Zulu Nation, something I've uploaded on the 6th of October 2022. When I did grow up in my 20s, I certainly did wear the kind of clothes that you see in the thumbnails. Well, these days, like especially on my YouTube, that's just the way I dress. I actually did even wear clothes like this back then. And what was wrong with hip hop was, it was all reflected, say like you had gangster rap. And pretty much in the 2000s, there was a moral panic on E&M, being a bad influence for kids. In the mid-2000s, there was a moral panic on 50 Cent. And like, I've never ever followed 50 Cent back in the mid-2000s. Since that, I think it was both my parents did get disappointed that I didn't follow 50 Cent at all, due to controversy. So now, media reports. Okay, right. The media report would say, for example, gaslight the hip hop scene. It's all about painting the negative image about hip hop, like the rise in youth crime, vandalism, particularly one reason why my father didn't want me getting involved with the hip hop scene. It's just like, he told me that it actually is the backbone to all the graffiti problems, especially on the side of trains, and it was a hip hop scene that actually encouraged all the graffiti and all vandalism problems, especially with street art. And those who actually try to force feed me and gaslight me in these things and try and emotionally manipulate me out of hip hop Well, obviously, my father was a folk devil, and there's even the moral entrepreneurs that will actually influence boundaries by the mainstream media. To say, for instance, like if there was a stabbing at a hip hop gig or even a shooting, it just says, well, ha ha ha. Hip hop is not peaceful, and it's all about trying to raise the alarm to parents. Like say, with my father, if he was still alive, but if I was still engaged with hip hop, that I have to wash my hands clean, be on clean slate, do not get into hip hop. And it's probably expected that maybe I could be wearing, like I was asked to wear blue jeans, not tracksuit pants like that green Marshall pants I'm wearing there. And basically, just cotton shirts, so I can bring back, say, episode 256, or you could actually see the shirts that I'm wearing there. I got in a lot of trouble for having that yellow shirt there, so it's created a moral panic, since it all reflected on a lot of these MTV hip-hop videos, like just pretty much involving big bling blings and just repetitive lines. There was just no rhythm, there was no soul, the song didn't tell a story, it was a string of repetitive chant. And the hip-hop I listened to had rhythm and had told the story. My father, and I even got a grandfather at the time who's alive, don't want to hear any of that at all. And wants to stick to a belief that what I've described, like we're talking about artists like Ja Rule or Nelly or Jagged Edge or Busta Rhymes, they really brought this out back in the early 2000s. Yes, I did listen to it till I started listening to alternative hip hop. We're talking about things like Dilated Peoples, Jurassic 5, Hilltop Hoods and Bliss and Esso, especially the hip hop I made too. So it's just like they'll use the mainstream media to create boundaries, to blur the lines between what is fact, what is fiction, and often it's the folk devils, they want to paint a negative image and gaslight the hip hop scene to be a very negative thing, to be criminal, to be like a criminal underworld. And it's just to restrict the hip hop scene, since they're called deviant groups, or deviant groups I should say, and pretty much trying to put youth crime towards hip hop scene, especially the way they dress, the music they listen to, and especially those juveniles and delinquents that'll go out stealing cars. They'll actually publish on social media, they'll have their own music blaring in the background. It's always a bit of rap or a bit of hip hop in a stolen car. And then eventually it's all about trying to influence the government and the police to create laws just to restrict things like begging for public dress codes or kind of sort of restrictions. And it's to fulfill the prophecy that hip hop is a negative image and a negative stereotype. There's nothing positive about hip hop. That's the prophecy that the folk devils are trying to fulfill. And those who are engaged with the hip hop scene, since I was in the alternative, we're pretty much in a counterculture to those who want to sort of blanket for a negative image. Something similar to what 50 Cent, Eminem, Ja Rule, and Busta Rhymes and Nelly was doing. Compares to something like Jurassic 5, Dilated Peoples, Hilltop Hoods and Bliss and Esso were actually bringing out. Something that's a bit more positive, something a bit more uplifting, being able to rap with rhythm and tell the story in their raps, and it just made better sense. And usually the folk devils will say, no, it's all the same, and they make it easier for themselves, they don't want to hear it. So what a moral panic is, it's just a way to really bring the hip hop scene down, since that it creates social change, it changes the dynamics as you go along. As generation goes by, there's always trends, fads that comes and goes, different aesthetics and all that too, because like it was a huge moral panic in America when the hippie culture first came about in the 1960s. And pretty much you have a punk scene, like if you remember back in the old days where punk rockers used to actually really spike up their hair and have mohawks, wear ripped clothes and basically graffiti their own leather jackets and wear ripped pants and pierce themselves with safety pins. Well, I know that's all ancient history though. Like, it was very controversial. It's all about prejudice. It's all about generating fear towards the public. Just trying to make it out that people who actually, like, these days in Australia, we've got kids growing mullet hairs, wearing Nike tracksuits bought from JD Sports, being on their e-scooters and using vapes. A lot of people actually do stereotype them to be stealing cars or causing home invasions. And that's what moral panic is. So, like, I just hope you really understand what moral panic is. Like, I'm just kind of freestyling this since I used to be a rapper, and I'm no stranger to my father's moral panic back in the days when I was a hip hop artist. And it can be like this, even me being an autistic YouTube content creator. And some parents will think, okay, at the time when I was filming this video on the 1st of August 2024, I am actually 44 years old. I'm living independently, so like my father had passed away and my mum has got remarried, and at the time, like, they're caravanning in Western Australia, but they're living out in the country, which I'm about 300 kilometres away from where my mum lives. So basically, I'm a single person, 44 years old, and it's up to her parents to maybe think, oh, hang on a sec, like, why am I dressed up like this? And they'll be raising autistic children, they'll have to think about the future, how a kid's going to be independent, and they'll have to question themselves, oh, is my kid's going to really end up like this? Well, you know, just who knows anyway, like, just nothing more to say, just do my own thing, and since I'll be single for life and all that, though, like, it's all about just trying to make my own lifestyle choices now, and I've got a full-time job, keeping the place clean and tidy, and just pretty much got routines to be able to sort of like survive being alone, and without the pressure of having to bring up children, at least I'll get to do this. But however it is though, if you like what I'm doing here, please why not subscribe to Ask Me With Attitude, that way you're showing more support for this channel. And also, don't forget to ring this notification bell if you want to keep up to date with Ask Me With Attitude. And don't forget to please like and share this video content around, that way you're showing more support for this channel. Well, anyway, this is just what I think about moral panic, think about what's on top of my head, the life experience that I had growing up as a hip hop artist when I was in my 20s and pretty much into my early 30s. So anyway, so I'm just going to wrap it up. I just didn't intend to make this such a long video, so I'll do this one more time. Like, not many 44-year-olds would ever do this. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening to Ask Me With Attitude, peace and respect, and see you next time.